Hi, this is Joel again, and in this video we will be showing the process for a screw mentable restoration. Now, one of the things that we've noticed, let's call it a trend in implant dentistry, is the aspect of screw retained restorations becoming more and more popular. From a long-term prosthetic perspective, a screw retained restoration is ideal. Nowadays we have such good composites and so forth that you can really block the chimney hole or the screw hole from the top of the crown to where the patient can't even really tell that there is a screw hole in the top of the restoration. In the past, that was really the reason that most restorative doctors didn't want to use a screw retained option. But nowadays, again, with the technology that we have, we can really clearly block out the screw retain or screw access hole from the top of the restoration. So again, just to review and summarize, we will be showing an option for a screw mentable. Now what I mean by screw mentable is this. Typically for a screw retained restoration you have to use a UCLA, and your laboratory waxes to that particular abutment and then casts it out of gold, whether it be high noble gold or semi-precious gold. But quite honestly, there is a high degree of expertise, I'll use the word, and technology in doing these custom castable abutments in order to get a good casting. All right. So a good way to utilize the screw retained option nowadays is by using a regular stock abutment. Now with the AnyRidge, you definitely have an advantage because you have 4 different flares of stock abutments. You have a 4mm flare, a 5mm flare, a 6mm flare, and a 7mm flare. So to be exact, a 4mm flare would be like for a lateral tooth. A 5mm flare would be like for a small bicuspid or a central incisor. A 6mm flare would be for a larger bicuspid or a small molar. And a 7mm flared easy post abutment would be like for a molar size restoration. So let's go through that process as we start here. So the first thing you're going to do is remove that healing abutment. Now with the AnyRidge system, the blue driver that you see here, it is a 1.2mm driver or 0.048 hex. So you just remove the healing abutment. And at this point in time, it is showing what we call an impression D driver. Now notice your top here is rotating because this rotating part here is friction fitting up against the inside or the guide pin on the top of the impression coping itself. So that is counterclockwise, clockwise. And now you can see that's what I meant right here. This is the guide pin head. But now we also have in this, the top of the impression coping itself, there is a 1.2mm hex hole now in these new guide pins that we have. So we actually have a hex hole now where you can use the 1.2mm driver here, or you can use the impression D driver. All right, so you take your impression around your impression post normally, as you would. You can use your light body or a medium body wash is actually even better, with a medium body or heavy body inside your impression tray. You remove your impression. You remove, notice it's going counterclockwise. You remove your impression post with your impression D driver or by fingers or whatever you may have by hemostats and whatever. So you put that into your analog. Okay. You reinsert your impression coping into, I'm going to pause it right there, into the model that you just took, into your impression. And obviously the laboratory is now going to be casting their gingival form or their soft tissue model, as you can see. All right, so from there they're going to pour up their stone model. All right, now you can clearly see the advantage here. Let me stop you right here. The advantage here, because I get calls all the time about what size abutment do I need. So what we have to look at is the spacing between the 2 adjacent teeth, as well as the tissue height. So what your laboratory should ideally do, once they pour up the soft tissue model, is get their perio probe and measure from the top of the analog here, which is the top of the implant in the mouth, to the top of the highest portion of the gingiva. Okay, again, from the top of the implant, which is the analog again, to the top of the tissue on the stone model. That way, from an ideal perspective, your laboratory can then order the ideal stock abutment, again, which is the easy post. Now again, just a quick review, the easy post abutments come in 4, 5, 6, and 7 millimeter flares, and they also come in 2, 3, 4, and 5 millimeter tissue cuff heights. So we have lots of different options to see what you need there. All right, let's proceed. Abutment goes in place. Now, this is just showing if you have to, if the laboratory has to possibly what a lot of people call customize or prep the abutment on the working model. Now, because we have so many options for the easy post abutments, you typically don't necessarily have to do that most of the time. So that's just showing, okay, we have a little bit of a vertical height issue, so they're going to make a mark there. Again, you're not always going to do this. All right, it's just showing what you would do if you had to do that particular aspect of removing the vertical height of that abutment. So when you get a disc or burr or whatever and lop off the top of the abutment. Put it back on your working model. Notice the long guide pin here. All right, so this is what the laboratory would then use and place over your easy post abutment. All right. That's really key to the whole process right there, that long guide pin. Now, again, if the laboratory has to do any abutment preparation, but again, this is just showing if it's necessary. It's not necessarily necessary, okay? So, by the way, with these easy post abutments, they are ginger hued and they are gold. But if you do prep them, they do turn gray. So, obviously, if you don't have to prep them, that would be more ideal. All right, so then what's going to happen, and I'm going to pause it when it changes sign over here. The laboratory, as you can see, then has to do what? Because this is a normal process for a normal PFM. So they would actually put a little wax on there because the wax is necessary for your casting, right? Now, the question becomes, would the laboratory have to put a dye spacer on your abutment? It depends, honestly, on the waxing process, but it is a good idea to put a dye spacer on the abutment. It's not a bad idea. And then just do the wax up right to the easy post abutment. That's for your casting, that wax up. All right? And that's just showing the whole process there. Obviously, they're going to wax sprue it, cast it. There's your casting, as you can see there. That's already casted. Quick overview. And there is your framework. So then obviously the restoration would then be made to whatever shade and so forth that you need, and you get the idea relative to what's happening there. Again, that guide pin is key for the removal access of this. Now, excuse me, it's showing the jig portion here. Excuse me. The jig is not necessarily, again, necessary. The reason they're showing the jig because the jig actually helps you with the seating of the abutment, getting you in the correct position with your abutment. Some labs will make you a jig, some labs won't. You don't, again, necessarily need it. So you remove that, and your jig carries the abutment nicely into place, so you get it correct every time. That's what the purpose of a jig. So there it's in the mouth. Put your final screw. By the way, the gold screw is your final screw, and your blue screw is your laboratory screw. All right, tighten that down. Put that in place. Remove that, and there you can see. Now here is where the restorative doctor's part comes in relative to the, again, screw mentable. And obviously mentable means cementable. So this is a bad idea, by the way, putting this much cement in here. You don't want to fill it up. Not a good idea. Just get one of those little quick tips, the little bendable tip with the cotton tip applicator, and paint the inside of the crown. You don't need that much cement because obviously all that cement is going to come out. Now it's easier to clean up, don't get me wrong. You can have access because you are going to remove that, and you'll see in just a second, and it is easier to clean up, but again, you just don't need that much cement. All right, so you put that in there, have the patient bite down. Okay. just like you would a normal PFM. And once it sets, once the whole thing sets, okay, you remove that if there's any cement or anything in the access hole. Yeah, you can. By the way, sorry, I didn't mention that. You can plug up your access hole there with some sort of Teflon tape is a good idea, or even you could put some impression material in there with some medium body impression material, so to put a little plug in there to keep that excess that cement from coming out. All right, now you get your screw and remove that. And now this is showing the abutment removal tool. All right. Again, this is the abutment removal tool that you will need because you didn't torque that down in place, but with the 5-degree Morse taper, the 5-degree Morse taper will definitely grab the Morse taper of the abutment, and you'll have a little bit of a hard time removing that. So definitely use your abutment removal tool in this process, and just keep turning clockwise until, as you can see there, the crown lifts up. Now, again, well, let me start a little bit further. All that excess and so forth that was underneath, that would typically stay underneath the tissue, even though you try to clean it off all the way, a lot of times a little bit gets around the portion of the neck of the abutment. At that point in time, it becomes now a perio problem because a lot of implants actually fail with excess cement in the aspects of the margin that are not cleaned up properly. All right, so there you go, and that is a screw-mentable crown. So obviously you want that cement to set nicely before you go putting it back in. So put that back in, and then once everything is in place, then you torque the abutment down to, let me stop it right there. Here's your marks on our torque wrench. They're 15, 25, and 35. Again, because of the 5-degree Morse taper in all the AnyRidge implants, you can use in between 25 and 35 Newton centimeters and you're fine. 35 is the maximum, 25 is the minimum. It really depends on your torque wrench that you have. You can use other torque wrenches on our system. For instance, 3i also uses an 048 driver. Other companies also use an 048 driver, which you can use their torque wrench on our implant as well. Okay? And as you can see there, now what you want to do, you measure the depth there. Obviously, you have your screw hex hole right here of the final screw. What you don't want to do is just fill this up with something to where it's going, that hex hole of the final screw is just going to become full of junk and blob or whatever you may put in there. Like some people put cabbage, and that just is a pain to remove and clean up. So what you want to do, you can use some Teflon tape, which is a good idea, or actually you can use some impression material itself, or we have this stuff called the Easy Seal. It's different little silicone plugs that you can put in there, and obviously they're color-coded white, as you saw, and you can put then your matching composite as best you can match in your screw access hole. And that is the process for the screw-mentable restoration. Again, this has been Joel Gonzalez, and my email is joel.gonzalez@megagenus.com. Please call me with any, email me with any questions and so forth, and I'll be happy to help you. Thank you. Have a good day.